The heartbeat of football is alive again in this hard-working city that is passionate for the game.
Touchdown, Calvin Johnson.
Excitement around the Lions is at a fever pitch.
Sacked again. Ziggy Ansah.
The team is ready. We're ready. Are you ready?
Golden Tate has a Lions touchdown.
A season it was. Beating up on each other. Now they get a real opponent. Finally, the Jets are in town at Ford Field for the preseason opener. And it comes your way only here on the Lions Television Network. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Shepard. Glad you're with us. There are a ton of storylines surrounding this Lions club and training camp, and there are big-time decisions to be made on the depth chart as well. Let's welcome in my partner, Rob Rubik. It all starts on that defensive line, don't you think?
Yeah, everyone talked about losing Ndamukong Suh to Miami, but they also lost C.J. Mosley and Nick Fairley. That's 3 of your top 4 defensive linemen. So now that means there's going to be a lot of competition, some jobs to be won. And that's the big competition we're going to watch tonight. Karan Reed, number 97, second-year player out of Princeton, has changed his body type. He comes in stronger, less body fat, 1 more year of experience. And with Tyron Walker, they bring him in from New Orleans in the free agent market. He played in a read-react defense with New Orleans. Now it's different. He has to learn Coach Austin's attacking, work up the field. He's making a transition. He's becoming more competitive. Look for that battle to carry out not only tonight, but throughout the preseason.
They'll have to make up more than 2,300 snaps. Let's welcome in Nate Burleson to our broadcast team this year. Great to have you on board, partner. Let's talk about the offense a little bit. They help Matt Stafford in terms of weapons. Is it enough, do you think?
Yes, he has enough weapons. I'll say emphatically that Calvin Johnson, when healthy, is the best receiver in the world, the most dominant, most versatile receiver. Free agency, Golden Tate last year proved to be just that, the best free agent in the market. Came out putting up 1,300 yards, filled in when Calvin was a little bit unhealthy. But this year we have to find out. This is why preseason is so special, because you got to find that number 3 guy. Any successful offense in the NFL, you have a third person that can come in and make plays. Is it Lance Moore at receiver who they brought in? Is it Amir Abdullah, the young draft pick at running back? Is it one of the many tight ends that we have on this team? So it's exciting to see exactly what guys are going to do this preseason game. For those who thinks preseason doesn't matter, trust me, it does.
Things to be proven by many a player here tonight. They want to make this team in. They want to start. They want to find their niche in this offense, defense, or special teams. We'll be monitoring it for you, not just tonight, but all preseason long. We can't wait to get it started. The kickoff is next on the Lions Television Network. 6th all-time preseason meeting between the Jets and the Lions. The Diversified Members Credit Union brings you the coin toss. John Hussey, the referee. Nick Mangold and the Jets called heads. It was tails. Matt Stafford and the Lions want to receive the football to start tonight's preseason opener against New York. Let's go down to the sidelines. Welcome in Jennifer Hammond. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Matt. And when you see the offense come out to start the game, you won't see number 81, Calvin Johnson, playing tonight. That's just to keep him fresh, keep him healthy, and he's a veteran. He's earned it after all. But some guys you want to keep an eye on. Lance Moore, he comes from New Orleans. He's familiar with this system. He's helping all the guys along on the offense. And also one I'm interested to see, number 18, Greg Salas. He is one of those guys, free agents, that's just trying to make a team, and he has turned some heads so far in camp. Shep?
All right, Jen, thanks very much. Jim Caldwell in his 2nd season as the head coach of this club. Steady as she goes. And guys, he gave them the opportunity, this team, to come into camp a little bit later. Could have come in a little bit earlier, but they've earned it, haven't they?
That's exactly what veterans want. You know, I remember it later in my career when the coach told me that I could come into camp late, take a few days off. You just felt that much more refreshed. People don't think it's a big deal, but it's all about trying to pace the individuals that you have on the team.
And you're willing to do a little bit more for that coach, too.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
ingratiated himself to you very well.
For sure.
100% participation in the offseason helped as well. Nick Folk will kick it away for the Jets. Jeremy Ross will return it for the Lions. And Ross needs to have a good showing in this preseason to solidify himself as a returner and that 5th wide receiver.
Yeah, but let me go back to Caldwell for a second. I was talking to a couple of players that have been in the league for a while. They said, this is the first time I felt like a professional athlete. And that's big-time praise to a coach for a young guy or an old guy to say that. you can tell that he's making an impact on this squad.
Ross fields it inside the 5. Nice seam up the middle. And drilled shy of the 30. So Matt Stafford leads his offense out onto the field. Last time he took the field in a competitive nature was against Dallas in the playoffs. He went 28 of 42, 321 yards, and a touchdown. 4 consecutive years of 20 touchdowns or more. The 12 picks a year ago, the fewest in his career. Theo Riddick, the lone setback. And he gets the call. Trying the right side of that offensive line, especially the right tackle is where we'll keep an eye on tonight and throughout the preseason. Tonight's offensive starting lineup for the Lions, presented by Ford Motor Company. Talked about Riddick. Brandon Pettigrew, a career-low 10 catches a year ago. Eric Ebron has looked very good in training camp.
I would like to see Pettigrew get a lot more balls this season. Play with him 4 years. Tremendous pass catcher. He just needs to be a little more consistent.
Stafford has good protection. And a man who caught 99 rocks last year made an miss and gets into Jets territory.
Well, this is going to be pretty easy pitch and catch. Golden Tate's going to be split wide to left. He's going to just run a 10-yard curl. What he does so well is after the catch. He has shake. He can make people miss. That first guy rarely gets him. He makes a couple miss, picks up a nice block. Good effort down the field by Pettigrew, turning into a big game.
What I love is how he stuck that left foot in the ground, spent to the outside, and his eyes immediately goes to the end zone as if he's going to score, which makes him such a good yak receiver.
Did it against a pretty good corner, too. Antonio Cromartie is the man they were picking on there, a 4-time Pro Bowler.
You know, when they brought Golden Tate over from Seattle in free agency, everybody had the question, is this guy truly a #1 receiver, or is he a #2 receiver? You know, I talked to Golden Tate, and he said, listen, you can label me what you want, but when I step on the field, I'm going to play like a #1. I don't care who I'm playing with. He even mentioned, he said, if I'm playing with Chris Carter or Jerry Rice or Calvin Johnson, I'm going to go out there and play like a #1. And he truly does, though. You put up 1,300 yards.
The numbers he put up last year were #1 numbers.
Yes.
And Golden Tate, he may lack a few things. Maybe great top-end speed, maybe a little bit of strength, but he does not lack his confidence. He goes out, he knows he's a player. He expects to make plays, and he's one of those guys that just wants to be fed throughout the course of the game.
First pair of Lions wide receivers to each have 1,000 yards in the same season since 2006. That was Roy Williams and Mike Furry. These two guys blow those two guys away. First and 10 here. And this is Amir Abdullah, the 2nd-round pick out of Nebraska. Squeezed it inside the 40 to the 39-yard line.
I believe that Amir could be the steal of the draft. I like to call that the SOD, and the reason I'm so high on that is because that's what I was labeled as a 3rd-rounder. You get a guy in who put up so many numbers at Nebraska, and what he has is great patience, good quickness when he gets the ball in hand, and hopefully he can catch out of the backfield as well.
It's an all-rookie backfield. Michael Burton is the fullback. Out of Rutgers, and Abdullah dancing his way, cutting his way to the 35, and a first down for the rookie. You talked about his Nebraska numbers, and you talked about how good he was, the only player in Cornhusker football history with 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, and I talked about his quickness at the point of impact. You know, most guys can't stick their foot in the ground and make a move like that. And the last guy I can remember to be that good at making moves inside the hole was Javed Best, and we remember what type of back he was.
Stafford to throw across the middle. It's Tate again. He could be gone. Touchdown, Golden Tate.
That was special, guys. That was special.
Well, this is exactly what Coach Calder wanted to see. Matthew Stafford in the first series gets some throws in, gets some confidence. Golden Tate out of the slot, runs across, feels the zone, does a nice job of finding the open area, and then once again after the catch, you know, he's a playmaker and he makes plays.
That's exactly what it is. He's a playmaker. It's about time to get that fella out. Golden Tate, you did your job tonight. Let's get you
right. Matthew Stafford. To good news fans, they scored. The bad news is you're done seeing Stafford, I believe.
Different setup for the PATs in the preseason. Matt Prater, who was 21 of 21 a year ago, drills a very efficient Very impressive opening drive from Matt Stafford and Golden Tate. He dialed in to the Lions' leading receiver a year ago, not once but twice. The second one went to the house. Detroit Lions football is presented by PNC Bank for the Achiever in you. By Ford Motor Company, introducing the all-new Ford F-150, the future of tough. And by Arby's, try the new loaded Italian sandwich today. Impressive opening drive for the Lions starting offense. Lions will kick it away, and it's Walter Powell back deep for the Jets. Sam Martin, the Lions punter, does the kickoff duties. Goes it deep, and Powell out of the end zone. Wants to make a statement, and has. Finally tripped up shy of the 45. Scoring drive presented by Family Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. It was efficient. It's fun to watch. Simply put, a 35-yard pitch and catch. Matt Stafford to Golden Tate took less than 2.5 and covered over 70 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the starting quarterback for this New York Jets squad. The 12th-year pro out of Harvard, who is there, I don't want to say by default, but out of necessity that we'll get into as the game progresses a little bit. Offset eye behind him. And Chris Ivory, forward push, close to midfield. Tonight's defensive starting lineup for the Lions is presented by Wallside Windows. The defensive line had 34 of this team's 42 sacks a year ago, but only Ziggy Ansah and Darryl Tapp remain on the screen. The linebackers are back. There are 9 returning starters on this club. That was one of the best in the NFL, and all from the linebacker and cornerback spot, besides Ansah. Second and 3, Fitzpatrick on a quick slant, a first down and inside the 40-yard line. Brandon Marshall, big pickup for a 5th rounder in the offseason and a trade. There's Fitzpatrick, who played with the Houston Texans, has played with the Bills as well. And why is he there? He's there because Geno Smith, who is the scheduled starter, is out 6 to 10 weeks. Most people know the story. Ike Enemkpali broke his jaw earlier this week. In a non-football related play. 1st and 10 for the Jets. Ivory found it open inside the 35. The Jets are trying to focus on football, fellas, but when you're in the headlines for the wrong reason, you understand why people will pounce when the opportunity presents itself.
Hey, I want one of those jobs where one of the papers can be sarcastic like that, get paid money. Those are clever.
Could you come up with those headlines?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, New Yorkers are good at that.
Todd Bowles quickly diffused it. He cut Enemkpali,
who was picked up quickly
by his former coach.
By the man who drafted him,
out there in the Bills.
Second down and 3. Ivory found another hole, muscled his way to the 30. Now, this is a defensive front four and a defense in general. Remember, allowed only a shade over 69 yards per game on the ground a year ago. They led the NFL. First time they've done that since 1981.
Well, since losing Sue, I think the magnifying glass is going to be on that defensive line, especially throughout this preseason. Who is going to step up? Who's going to be a guy that can fill that gap? Are they going to do it by committee? Is it going to be one individual? What's going to happen when Nada gets back? It's going to be interesting to see how this defensive line gels without Sue.
Heavy backfield behind Fitzpatrick. Tommy Bohannon, the fullback, leads the way. Ivory goes over the guard. That'll be interesting.
Tough, I tell you. Darryl Tapp did a really nice job from his left defensive end position, getting penetration and forcing Ivory to kind of cut it up inside more. Good physical play. You can take a look right here on the bottom of your screen. Let it run. Good push inside. You see him work down inside, takes an inside path and Shows why he's lasted as long as he has in this league, being a defensive end with not the best measurables.
You're right about that. Now, I remember playing with him in Seattle when he was a rookie, and I'll tell you what, he came in right away. Great strength, and they said he was a little undersized to be a defensive lineman, but sometimes that's an advantage, especially in situations like this. We just saw the play where he was able to get underneath the offensive lineman's pads and then use his quickness and arm strength, get his hand on the running back. That's exactly what you want to see for a guy who you said is sometimes noticed as undersized.
And it's short. And he's 6'1", 265, just so people know.
You see Chris Ivory getting a lot of the runs here. 3 Great Lakes, if Joique Bell was playing in this game, be 3 guys on the GLIAC, because you have Desmond Martin for the Lions, Joique Bell, as well as Chris Ivory, both from Wayne State, Chris Ivory from Tiffin.
Gabe Wright, the 4th-round draft pick for the Lions. The Jets, 4th down. They're going to go for it.
I love it.
Preseason, you have to, right?
You have to go for it. Offense is going to be measured by what happens here. Defense is definitely going to be measured. These are the moments you really like in preseason if you're a coach.
Is the boot pass coming up, Shep?
I doubt it. Not with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And 6 overall in his career. One of the best centers in the league.
Well, the Jets win up front, get a nice double. You see Mangold, 74, the center, gets some push. He comes off on Tulloch. Tulloch can never get off free to make the tackle. Good job. The offensive line of the Jets won that battle.
Mangold, his 10th year out of Ohio State. You got DeBrickashaw Ferguson, one of the best in the business on the left side. His 11th year out of Virginia. Ivory, the workhorse on the drive. Bounce into the outside. Stiff arming his way out of bounds at the 20. James Ihedebo came over with Darius Slade and knock him out of bounds. This Jets offense has to be better than it was a year ago. They ranked 27th in yards per game and 29th in points per game.
Well, if it wasn't for a stellar defense, they would have had a lot of issues last year, worse than they did. The defense very stout throughout the season. Not quite good enough for Rex Ryan to keep his job.
Ivory, the lone tailback, spent 2010 through 13 in New Orleans. 5 carries for 25. Here's Eric Decker. Slipped out of 1 tackle from Darius Slay. Got a couple of extra yards out of it. He was a big free agent pickup a year ago. Defend the Den. Purchase single-game Detroit Lions tickets now at DetroitLions.com. And it's a really good-looking home schedule, too. Jim Caldwell, who likes this team, he said they've been pros, they've been mature in the way they've gone about their business. They've been focused. 3rd and short. Pressure from behind. And incomplete. Good job by Darius Slay, the intended receiver, the tight end, Jeff Cumberland.
Well, up top, Ziggy Ansah, DeAndre Levy, 54, blitzing from the linebacker position. I'm not sure he gets a piece of that, but it does make it come out quick. But you got to like Darius Slay. The way he has learned to compete. They play more man coverage with him now, let him show his strength, and that is just sticking on someone like Velcro. Last year we saw him make a ton of plays in man-to-man coverage.
34-yard field goal attempt from Nick Folk. And it is good. So both teams score on their opening drive, but it's the Lions who reach pay dirt, and New York who settles for 3. You're watching the Lions Television Network. Jets settle for 3. Lions in front by 4. And Amir Abdullah, who got a lot of people on their feet on that opening drive, will now return the kickoff. Remember this. Set the school record at Nebraska for all-purpose yards. He's not just a tailback who totes the rock. He can catch it, and he can return it, too.
And that's what you want out of a young guy who's coming in. You obviously want him to be a great complement to Joique Bell, who's kind of the bruiser, a guy that can move his feet in between the holes. But if he can do stuff like this, return, kickoff return, punt return, that'll just raise his stock, not only in the NFL, but especially on this team.
Take it out, 8 yards deep. Found a little bit of a seam there and got to the 19-yard line. Matt Stafford's night is done. Kellen Moore's is just beginning. We'll talk about him and the Lions offense when we come back on the Lions Television Network. Matt Stafford all smiles, and for good reason. His first drive, his only drive of the night, very successful, fellas.
Yeah, he did a good job, just being patient, getting the ball out. Golden Tate showing why we love him so much, that yards after catch. Theo Riddick comes in, making plays. But what I loved about this play in particular, the anticipation of getting that ball in there before Golden Tate gets there, and he does the rest. What he does best was his yards after the catch.
So Kellen Moore takes over. Amir Abdullah is the lone tailback behind him and gets the call. First string offensive line is in there. Look at this kid. There's a flag on the play, and he is hog-tied from behind inside the 40-yard line. I thought they got a little piece of the face mask, too, on the tackle. That shows you the excitement, the charge that he can give you.
Well, it's not only his ability to cut, it's his acceleration after he makes a cut, and that's the difference. A lot of guys can make cuts, but they don't go anywhere after the cut. When he decides, he stretches it out and he plants and he accelerates.
Illegal use of the hands to the face. Defense number 21.
Listen, I believe we're starting to see a theme here. When he gets in small spaces, which usually rattles runners, whether you're a receiver or running back, he's not afraid to dip a shoulder. You'll see him right here. He moves his head, moves his legs. He'll plant that right leg down and then throw that shoulder and head down a little bit, which usually DBs fall for. Most of the time, DBs are taught, look at their stomach, look at their base. That's never going to move. But a running back of his caliber, he knows if I give you some shoulder, I stick my leg in the ground, you're going to bite on something, and that's going to give me the ability to move upfield.
46 yards to the good. And now Theo Riddick behind Kellen Moore. His first toss of the night, underneath, and it's Lansmore. First down, and then pushed out of bounds at the 16-yard line.
Well, Kellen Moore into the game now. The quarterback from Boise State hasn't seen much action except for the preseason with the Lions. He put up some gaudy numbers when he got Boise State. We just saw in that last play what he brings. That's accuracy and intelligence. He reads the coverage. He knows there's nothing down the field. He just hits the underneath crossing road, and Lance Moore with his first catch as a Lion.
Riddick inside the 10. Solid run. Let's talk about Kellen Moore for just a moment. Jim Bob Cooter, the quarterback coach, told us earlier today, we want to see him against ones. We want to see him go up against guys who have a little bit more upper echelon talent. How else are you going to know about a guy unless you see him against some guys who are playing on a regular basis Sundays?
Listen, I was always told that you don't know how much a horse can pull until you hook him to a trailer. And that's what they're doing right now, is throwing Kellen right into the fire. But I'll tell you what, I played with Kellen while he was here at Detroit, and he always had composure. He never got rattled, whether he was playing against the ones defense or the threes while we were at practice. And another thing he does well, you said accuracy, getting the ball out of his hands, but he has great anticipation.
Well, he has to, because he does not have a strong arm.
And he doesn't have a ton of height, so he has to get that ball up and over and right into the receiver's hands.
Third and short. Abdullah to the left shoulder of Kellen Moore. Takes his time after the botch snap, and they'll throw it away. Had a couple of those the other days, fellas. We saw that, this offense, and he's working with the first stringers up front, but he had a couple slip through his hands when they were running the drills the other night.
Well, right, you got to make that one.
Yeah.
That's a good snap.
Yeah.
The center's going to look at that and say, hey, I did my job. Travis Swanson doing the shotgun, say, hey, what else do you want me to do? Put it right in his meat hooks, and he just couldn't get it, and he's kicking himself right now because he was putting together a nice drive.
Yeah, he was feeling comfortable. He knew that he was going to make a play and get that ball out of his hands into one of his skilled players. He's a little frustrated at this point, but I'm pretty sure he'll have a chance to make up for it.
28-yard field goal attempt from Matt Prater out of the hold of Sam Martin, and a perfect snap from Don Muehlbach. And the Lions have had 2 drives and 2 scores. The first one, a touchdown to Golden Tate, and Amir Abdullah on this electrifying 46-yard run put him in prime position, and they're up by 7. They've lost Hall of Famer Charlie Sanders, one of the best men, not just football players, best men you'll ever know.
We did the cookout every training camp at the end with Charlie. We're going to name it the Charlie Sanders Annual Perch Cookout. this year in Charlie's honor, though, we're going to bring walleye. We've been doing pretty well up north. And, you know, a really great football player in the Hall of Fame, but a better human being, Matt. You know that.
And we also lost Mel Farr not too shortly thereafter, two-time All-Pro, and a guy who was Rookie of the Year in 1967, Charlie Sanders, one of the best players this franchise has ever had. Part of our broadcast for years. We miss him dearly.
And one of the things that I did when I signed to Detroit was I tried to get a fond understanding of the history of the team and what guys meant a lot to this program and organization. And Mel and Charlie were two individuals that were very impactful. When I would see Charlie in the facility, he would give me a nod. He would always have his fresh suit on, a big smile on his face, and he embraced me. Even when I was injured, banged up, when I was playing well, Charlie was one of those guys, and they'll be very missed.
He gave a long embrace to Dexter Bussey, their good friend, down on the sidelines earlier today. He's still feeling the effects of it and still missing. We all do. There's no doubt about it. We all miss it. Jim Caldwell has talked about him numerous times. And now the Jets go back to work. Bryce Petty under center. He's the draft pick out of Baylor, the rookie who wants to throw on his first attempt, and he connects to the fullback out of the backfield. Minimal gain for Tommy Bohannon. Jennifer Hammond knew Charlie Sanders exceptionally well as well. She has more from the sidelines. Jen?
Yeah, you know, the one thing about Charlie, he was humble, he was grateful all the way until the end. I had an opportunity to interview him in the hospital in June during his annual golf outing that was raising money for Have a Heart, Save a Life. And even at that point in time, and he knew he was sick and that it was closing in, he didn't want to talk about himself or his illness. He just wanted to focus on the kids and all of those lives that he's been able to save. And he is a true class act and will continue to do great work in his memory as well.
And how about the number of people he's touched? Not just as football players, broadcasters, fans, just couldn't beat it. And by the way, none of us will ever be able to dress as well as Charlie Sanders.
You're right about that.
Oh, we look forward to that every week. What was Charlie going to have on the sidelines, and especially his shoes?
The shoes.
Oh,
those purple boots a year ago blew me away.
Oh, he had those mustard-colored loafers he had, too. Oh.
We're thinking of it. Third down and long for the Jets. They're 0 for 2 on third down conversion so far tonight. Travis Lewis, man in the middle of the linebacker spot for the Lions. An empty backfield for Petty. Pressure in his face. Incomplete.
Looks like a miscommunication. Here's the thing about miscommunications between the quarterback and the receivers.
You gonna blame it on the quarterback?
They rarely give the credit to the defense. So what I'm saying is, in that last drive, you got to give credit to the Lions defense. The reason there's a miscommunication because the receiver got jammed up. He wasn't in the place he was supposed to be, so the quarterback couldn't give him the ball.
It disrupts the timing.
It disrupts his timing.
It's also what you see when you have a rookie quarterback with some second and third string receivers not on the same page as well.
Yeah.
Ryan Quigley shanks one. Jeremy Ross lets it roll.
He thought about it.
Yeah, inside the 20.
He thought about it. That's my boy Jeremy. He wants to make a play.
Well, especially when you're on the proverbial bubble.
Yeah.
You always want to make a play and try to stand out. Speaking of standouts, one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, and no doubt the best in Lions history, Charlie Sanders. We're thinking of number 88 on this Thursday night. Good-sized crowd here at Ford Field for the preseason opener. Laken Tomlinson, Detroit's first-round choice, number 28 overall, now moves into the left guard spot. Fellas, 52 games started in 4 years at Duke, an academic All-American, and they love what this kid can do for this offense.
Size and intelligence. Two great things to have when you're trying to protect a very good quarterback.
Theo Riddick going to the right side and slipping his way to about the 23-yard line. Rontez Miles, the second-year pro out of California, Pennsylvania, makes the tackle.
I saw Theo as a rookie, and I realized immediately that he's a guy that wants to come in and make an impact. And with Amir Abdullah being the draft pick, already having Joy Bell,
he got a little chip on his shoulder right now.
He knows what this means to him. When I talked about preseason being important in the beginning, this is what I talked about. Guys like him.
Sixth-round draft pick out of Notre Dame. Now an empty backfield. Moore will throw from it. Quick toss to Ebron. Catches and runs for a first down. And this is some of the things that you guys have seen in training camp. You like the way he's come into camp and asserted himself.
I like what I see in the confidence level with Eric Ebron. Last year, he was like a fish out of water about halfway through the season. This year, he comes in with a renewed confidence that we saw early on in his career as a rookie. But what I like is his speed. When you watch him in practice, he has cartoon speed compared to the rest of the tight ends, man. He's just at a whole new level. So they can utilize that, get him to take advantage of that speed in matchups. He can be quite a weapon.
Amir Abdullah didn't find the opening he was hoping for. The other thing about Ebron, Jim Caldwell said he's just coming in better shape. I mean, he knows the system a little bit better. He's coming in better shape. 25 rocks a year ago. Many people thought that was a disappointment. Eric Ebron said it was not a disappointment.
Well, you know, it's all in the eye of the beholder. He has to convince himself that it's not a disappointment, that I'm taking advantage of opportunities. I think people that saw him as an early draft pick and likened him to a Vernon Davis, they want to see 50 and 60 catches.
10 draft pick.
But when you're playing with Golden Tate, Calvin Johnson, it's hard to get a lot of catches.
But like you said, pie,
you just want to see growth. There's only a few pieces of pie on the plate. You're right.
Good job by Moore to escape and run for a first down on the near sideline.
I think calling that running is being quite kind.
Well, it was more of a scoop.
He was shuffling off. We're going to take a look at Laken Tomlinson inside, trying to protect number 72. A good job one-on-one. Look at good leverage. Stays underneath the pad. T.J. Barnes.
That's a big hoss there. 6'7", 364 for the Jets. The Jets have 31 guys who are 6'6", or bigger.
Wow.
Martin Mayhew says, you know what? We've never seen anything like that. Gunther Cunningham told us earlier, I've never seen anything like that. That's off the charts. Quick sling to get into Jets territory to Lance Moore. What do you think Lance Moore can do in this offense?
Well, we've seen Lance Moore with the Saints make tons of plays. He can take the top off the coverage. He's very quick. He can run good slant routes, and that's what we just saw there. He's a guy that can scare you from each position. He can go outside, he can go inside. You need a veteran. You need a guy that can come in and be a compliment.
Now, Nate, you think you better accept his role, though, because he's going to be more of the possession receiver here. He's not going to be the up-top vertical guy because you have Kelvin, and Golden's going to get a lot of the intermediate. He's going to be more of your short slant route like we just saw.
Listen, I think at this point in his career, he just wants to win. Regardless of whatever his role is, he just wants to win it. And just like I told Golden Tate when he signed here, you are in the best position you could be in. You're playing next to the best receiver in the world, which means you're going to see single coverage. You're going to have tons of opportunity to make plays. And if you can just stay healthy, which is something I had trouble with, you're going to be successful. Same thing with Lance Moore. Now you add him to the fold. Whether you want to label him as a number 3 or not, you're going to have opportunities to go up against the third cornerback, sometimes fourth cornerback, nickelbacks, who are usually young guys, which as a veteran, it makes you extremely confident going into a game knowing you're going to face the 24-year-old cornerback who's fourth on the roster.
That's good stuff. We're hoping Lance Moore can take advantage of it because there's only one football to go around to all those guys. They're going to be really happy as long as they keep winning. Golden Tate was pretty happy last year because they won 11 games. Amir Abdullah has made a lot of people happy. And the Lions so far tonight have done the same. They're up 10-3 and still with the rock when we come back to start the second after this. Detroit Lions football is presented by Tim Hortons. Great tasting food, amazing coffee. And by PNC Bank for the achiever in you. Alongside Rob Rubik, Nate Burleson, Jennifer Hammond. I'm Matt Shepard. Glad you're spent part of your Thursday sports viewing with us. The Lions-Jets clash in the preseason opener. We start quarter number 2. Kellen Moore out of the gun. A third and short underneath. Moore again, first down. That's what Lance Moore did in New Orleans so very well.
And that's what he's going to do in Detroit as well. There is a flag on the play. But he is going to be that guy they haven't really had. They thought Ryan Broyles would be that possession receiver that they need to help, stay ahead of the chains, move it on those third and shorts, work in a small space. Use your quickness, use your experience. Listen to the call.
Pass interference, offense, number 82, 10-yard penalty, remains third down.
Well, they got Jordan Thompson, the second-year tight end out of Ohio. I don't know if he ran a pick there or maybe a little push-off. We're going to take a look here and see. Jordan Thompson's going to be right here. See, that's a tough call.
That's
he's
not a
trying
tough
to
call.
get
That's a bad
free.
call.
I agree, because as a tight end, the most difficult thing to do is get a release. That guy is coached to jam you, get his hands on you, and you're trying to work through it.
He's trying to work through him. His arms were underneath. The defender was wrapped around him. That really should have been a defensive pass interference.
2 receivers up here. We might be biased.
4 throws and just off the fingertips. Intended for Jeremy Ross.
Coach Caldwell's got to be pretty pleased so far, Chef, what he has seen with his offense. And with, there's certain guys, a preseason game, and you'll see plays called. We've talked about this in the past. There are going to be plays called in this game that aren't for the course of the game as much as they are to watch individuals so you can grade them and you can watch how they perform in certain situations. And we'll see that throughout this game.
Sam Martin, Jeremy Curley to return it from inside the 10. Got a key block and then hemmed out of bounds. Well, Rob Rubik spent 7 years with the Lions. Nate Burleson, not quite as many, but boy, a lot of exciting plays as he led.
I see him talking there a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, man, look at this. It seems like so long ago.
That wasn't that long ago.
I know. Maybe I just been out of it so long. But you know what? I love playing here, and people ask me, why did you love Detroit so much? It was because the city embraced me like no other. And I played at 3 really good cities. I played with Minnesota Vikings and went home to Seattle, and I played 4 years here in Detroit. And I just tried to convince my teammates that if you don't love where you're at, then you can't truly love what you do. You have to love your city, and in turn, you'll love football playing in this city. Special years here in Detroit.
Let me just say, as a reporter, you were also a go-to guy. That helps. That you're there to answer questions day in and day out as the Jets go to work. Second drive with Bryce Petty, the rookie out of Baylor, 6'3", 230 pounds, and a guy who might have a better shot at playing a little bit more this year than he originally thought when he was first drafted, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. That the fact you never know how things are going to transpire, how things are going to work out, but now the situation is there for the taking.
And that's why we love the preseason. It's the moment where the guys that are truly on the fence that really don't have any idea where they stand, because you know how coaches are. They'll give you the pump fake, and you don't know if he likes you or if he loves you, if he hates you. But the preseason can decide that.
Well, they'll do that all in one practice, by the way.
Petty's got time. On a comeback route that's dropped.
Boy, nice job, too, by the receiver by that time. That was Quincy Enunwa. And Quincy Enunwa did a good job of doing the hook and then working back to the quarterback. He did everything right except catch the football. The ball's delivered by Petty, and Enunwa comes back.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you extend your hands completely stiff, when you're coming back on a curl route, you got to have some type of give. You got to bend the elbows just a little bit so you can retrieve the ball and bring it into your chest. He kept his arms fully extended, which is hard to grab.
No shock absorber.
Exactly.
3rd down and 8. Jets looking for their first 3rd down conversion of the night. Petty under pressure, and down he goes. Karan Reed.
Then Devin Taylor, too. Meet at the quarterback. Good pressure inside. We're going to look. Both defensive tackles are going to come right up the middle. Reed using strength. Taylor using a little bit of finesse. They arrive at the quarterback in different ways, but the outcome is exactly what Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator, wanted to see. Pressure on a 3rd down passing situation.
You know, for the size of Taylor, his arm length, and you may be not assuming he could be as strong as he is, but he really is. He utilizes his arms very well. You know, you're born with certain attributes. You got great height, great length in your arms, and he utilizes it every single play when trying to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, the knock on Devin is a little bit of his strength. But if he can use that quickness and athleticism, they won't worry about the strength as much, Shep, and we won't worry about the Lions with a 10-3 lead.
And welcome back to Ford Field. There you see Karan Reed sitting at the end of the bench, and this is one of the guys that Jim Caldwell absolutely wants to get a good look at. He worked very hard in the offseason. He changed his diet. He got a Shep. He took a big leap, lost 3% body fat, and he is so much more improved and different even than he was as a player in the spring, Shep. Caldwell says this is a guy that can really help us. They're eager to see him take some more leaps. But interestingly enough, speaking of leaps off the field, this guy, overcoming his fear of heights, He went ziplining. DeAndre Levy isn't the only one doing crazy things in the offseason. He went to Belize, where he said, I overcame my fear of heights.
Yeah, he worked out with Ndamukong Suh in the offseason as well, lifting and watching films. It's really helped him so far in training camp. Injury for the Lions, Darren Keaton out of Central Michigan. We'll be back. Stay with us. Key in any preseason is staying healthy. Darren Keaton getting a scare here. Guy who spent time on the Lions practice squad. Forced off the field a little bit because of this injury.
We're going to watch him right here. He's working against Sheldon Richardson. He just really gets him going on his heels and then bends over backwards and his legs buckle a little bit. Let's hope it's not serious.
Theo Riddick trying the left side. Made something out of nothing. Riddick's had a nice showing so far tonight.
Well, I think he was one of the surprises last year as far as becoming a playmaker for this team. Didn't think they were going to get a lot out of him as going into the season, but actually won a couple games, helped win a couple games rather, with some big plays towards the end, and he was very productive.
Well, Braxton Cave there, taking the place of Darren Keaton. One of the cooler names on this squad, by the way, Cave. Caveman. Nice catch by Riddick. Oh, and he stays on his feet. Might have been a mistake there as he's thrown backwards a little bit.
Well, that's a very underestimated part of his game. I mean, he's good out the backfield. You know, he can make moves when you hand the ball off to him, but he also can catch very well. You see him extend his hands and go up just like a receiver. Staying on his feet, he has a really good low center of gravity. But that's what you need nowadays. You need a running back that you can turn around and traditionally hand the ball off to. But most of the time, you're going to need a guy that can catch balls out the backfield. I mean, you look at Forte in Chicago, over 100 catches. That's production, offenses need.
Jamal Charles, another one.
Yeah.
Kearley, backpedaling to the 11. Good coverage by the Lions punt unit. So in a little bit of an offensive lull, but the Lions still lead it by 7. You're watching the Lions Television Network. Lions up by a touchdown with a little bit more than 11 minutes to go in this opening half. The defense has carried this club a year ago. You see the gaudy numbers, second overall only to Seattle, and at one point they were number 1 in the NFL. The rushing yards, one of the best in NFL history. Glover Quinn led everybody in picks with 7. First Lion to do that since Len Barney in 1967.
Pro Bowl Glover Quinn. GQ, I saw him earlier. I said I'm going to give him a shout out.
Yeah, his first Pro Bowl, and Terrell lost it because his defense was so well renowned. Actually was a candidate for a head coaching gig in Buffalo, Chicago, San Francisco, and Atlanta. Talked to him walking this field a little bit before. He looks really good, lost some weight. Watching what he eats, working out a little bit, and loves this defense, loves that these guys understand. I think his biggest strength is kind of understanding what guys do well and then putting them in positions to execute.
Chef, that's the hardest thing for a coach to do is to kind of set his ego and intelligence aside as you see a run by Jets getting up the sideline. You got to let the coach put guys in position like you said, but more importantly, you have to understand what your pieces are. You got to know what you're working with. If you got great linebackers that can go north and south, east and west, DeAndre Levy, Steven Tulloch, then you let them do just that. If you got defensive linemen that can get upfield and get to quarterbacks and cause disruption, that's going to put less pressure on your cornerbacks. It's going to give your safeties, guys like Glover Quinn, the ability to stay in the back end and really just play that umbrella coverage. But that's what he does best. Austin, as a coach, one of the best out there, and guys absolutely respect him, which is why they play so well.
Also had a league best 114 quarterback hits a year ago. Big hit by Tahir Whitehead. Whitehead making a statement. Was a starter a year ago, and he's getting some pressure from Kyle Van Noy, last year's second-round pick out of BYU, to make sure he holds on to that starting gig.
Yeah, and Tahir Whitehead does a really nice job from the linebacker position of reading the guards. We're going to look at him right here. Watch, he's going to read the guard. When the guard pulls, he's going to fill right where he's coming. 67 pulls, he steps up in the hole, avoids the lead block of the fullback. So really good job of reading your keys, going guard to the fullback, and Tahir makes the play.
2nd and 10, Petty on a slant route, and it's caught inside Lions territory.
Let me get back to Tahir Whitehead for a second. I saw him come in as a rookie. We played together, and he always walks around with a huge smile, as you guys know. But one thing he did is he took care of his body, just like a veteran. Usually it takes rookies a little bit of time to get used to what being a professional football player, and he did it right away. He started getting the cold tub. He was taking the right vitamins, taking the right supplements. He did everything he needed to do. Actually, he did everything he needed to do plus more to take care of his body. So you can see the results of that from last season.
3rd and short, and the Jets able to convert. Bilal Powell, 5th-year pro out of Louisville. Just a capper on Tahir Whitehead. Not only is he smart on the football field, he's smart off it too. Does an awful lot of reading. The book he told me he's reading right now, Money, Master the Game. Making sure he takes care of the green, the paper, when he's done
Well, that
playing.
wouldn't help me. You have to have money to make money. So mine's all going to Michigan State, and it was going to Grand Valley. So I have no money left. But yeah, Tahir is one that's always trying to better himself on and off the field, as you said, man.
First 3rd down conversion tonight for the Jets. Corey Wooten slides down right to left from his defensive end position, and he's an interesting storyline on this club. 6'6", 270, and he can play on the end and inside.
Well, they got a little game, a little twist. Tahir was going outside, Wood was slanting inside. He's able to get penetration, and that's another one of those big, good-looking bodies you see in training camp. Former Northwestern Wildcat.
Loves the division. Played for Chicago, Minnesota a year ago, and now with the Lions. Yep.
Well, you get to see him. That's why they get picked up by other teams in the division, because you see him twice a year.
Loss of 1 on the play. Powell again. Travis Lewis makes the tackle right around the 39-yard line or so. You see Karan Reed remains in there. Larry Webster wears number 79 in Honolulu blue and silver. He's the 2nd-year pro out of Bloomsburg. You're going to keep an eye on him and see if he can make his presence felt after not playing last year. More of a basketball player in college than anything else.
But usually those basketball players transition well. It doesn't matter if you're playing tight end, D-line, D-end. When you have that athletic ability, it's easy to kind of translate that as a football player.
3rd and 4 for Bryce Petty and the Jets. Quick slant through the hands and incomplete. Issa Abdul Kudus.
Well, he was beat inside. What Kudus did a good job was closing, because when the ball was bobbled, he's able to close and not give Kellen Davis, the former Lion, the former Bear tight end, a chance to make the catch. One juggle and he hits you, knocks it free.
Good point,
defensive
Bruce.
stop.
Coaches always reiterate that the play isn't over, and he realized that even though I might have got beat, I need to make this tackle. Receiver, tight end ended up dropping the ball. But what I loved about that last sequence was they went man-to-man. Single safety, man up. Let's see what my guys are made of in the preseason. Let's see if we can put this pressure on the young quarterback and see if my DBs can step up.
Speaking of pressure on the quarterback, we saw DeAndre Levy put pressure on Ryan Fitzpatrick earlier tonight. Jennifer Hammond with more on, what, is he the latest rich Lion because of the contract extension, Jen?
Well, he absolutely is. He's one of the highest paid at his position, but DeAndre Levy, by all accounts, is not a guy that's going to change. He is a thrill seeker, an adrenaline junkie. He told me as much there. You see him. He walked on a biplane through the summer, and he also goes sledding on volcanoes, active volcanoes, I should add. This is the kind of guy that loves living life. He is intense. He is intense on the field. He's intense off the field, and even a little bit eclectic. He even dined on llama this off season. So he's the kind of guy that loves to travel, but when it is season, he is the hardest worker. He's a quiet leader to the point that Jim Caldwell said, when DeAndre Levy talks, it's kind of like E.F. Hutton. Everybody listens.
Jen, would you eat llama?
I wouldn't.
He says it's healthy and it tastes like dry steak.
Lean meat, dry
Tastes
steak.
like chicken, right?
I like my filet medium rare and tender.
Signed a 4-year contract extension on August 5th. Lions have locked him up, and it's a good thing they have. More. Problems there. Big-time pressure coming from the back end. And an incomplete pass.
Trevor Riley is really going to bring pressure. Come from the blind side. You're doing a naked boot to the weak side. And if that linebacker comes, he is unaccounted for. And as a quarterback, you roll right into it, and you just, that's one of those and you just try to get the ball out without making a turnover. And he got smucked. Remember now,
Kellen Moore is not the biggest in frame. Nate, you're a wide receiver. What'd you play, about 200?
Yeah, about 200.
Yeah, you would dwarf him.
Well, the hopes is that linebacker drops and follows the read of the offensive line, but he didn't. You got to get rid of that ball quickly. Tight end was there. He just read it a tad bit too late.
Give Riley credit. There's a 3rd down and 7 for Moore. Ryan Broyles with a grab, reaching out, trying to get the first down.
I think he got it.
You think so? I was wondering if they were going to mark it where the knee went down. He thinks they got it, and you're right.
He gave him a good spot. Yeah, he rolled. He wasn't down after the catch. Ryan Broyles has a knack of doing this. Saw it last preseason. He stretches out. He's on top of the defender. So just hurry up and run a play, though, just in case.
Think about that combo, guys. Ryan Broyles, the NCAA all-time leader in catches and yards, and Kellen Moore left Boise State 2nd all-time in touchdowns and 5th all-time in yards among D1 quarterbacks.
And you're speaking about 2 individuals that can catch the ball. You got Calvin Johnson, who in my opinion is the best in the world. I'll say it over and over again. Golden Tate, who I would call the sofa, still a free agency last year. But then you add Lance Moore. Yeah. Then you add Lance Moore and Ryan Broyles. You know, if these guys are able to solidify their spot on the team, that's exactly what you need, Shep. You need guys that can catch the ball, that are proven, that are just available and can be counted on when Calvin's not open, Golden Tate's not open, and that rarely happens.
Well, it gives the quarterbacks confidence too, doesn't it? Don't you think? Well, there's communication there between Moore and Jeremy Ross.
You know, I talked about it earlier. We just want to see the quarterbacks divvy up the balls in a more convenient way that helps this offense. You got Calvin Johnson, right? You can throw it to him 16 times a game. Is that healthy? No, it's not healthy. So you want to take those numbers down, start to spread that out. And if you can do that, and it's going to be a lot of pressure on Joe Lombardi. How can he utilize all his talent? You don't want guys to sit on the sideline and disappear.
No, you want to be diverse in what you do offensively because you're less predictable.
You're less predictable. You think of teams like the New England Patriots that utilize every single player every single game. The Detroit Lions can be that team. They have the talent.
Another 3rd down play for Kellen Moore. Short-armed it to Ross. Detroit will be forced to punt. Well, there is a flag on the play.
Looks like it could be a late hit on the quarterback.
Lorenzo Molden.
Right.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, number 55 on the defense.
That's a turnover.
A blow to the head and neck area.
It's a 3rd-round pick out of Louisville.
Automatic first down.
Yeah, Matt, you and I have done football long enough to know that we count this as a turnover because you're going to get the ball, but you cannot go that high on a quarterback. All those people don't want their children to play football any longer. I say, let him be a quarterback. You can't touch him anymore.
Hey, Rubes, you hit on it earlier. You said, as a young guy in the preseason, you just don't want to mess up.
Right.
And it's plays like that are going to stand out. There's only a handful of them in the preseason, and you don't want coach to point you out with the clicker and say, that was the stupidest play of the game.
Now they retain the ball.
Here's Theo Riddick trying to make him pay and getting to the 45-yard line.
What was going through Theo Riddick's head now? If you're a running back coming in, you see they draft Amir Abdullah so high in the draft. They pick him in. You got Joique Bell, and you're trying to make a niche on this team.
Right.
And you don't want to push in the preseason. Remember I said we just talked about you don't want to make a mistake, but geez, if you're Theo, you think, man, I got to do something to catch their eye so I can still get my piece of the pie during the course of this season.
Exactly. I remember one year in particular, I was playing with the Seattle Seahawks, and they just brought Deion Branch over from the Patriots. They already had DJ Hackett at receiver, and they said it's an open competition. And at this point, I was 3rd or 4th on the depth chart. And that offseason, I worked out harder than I ever worked. I mean, I did everything the team asked me to do. Then I worked with a personal trainer, and I felt like that year I was the best receiver on the field, and I proved to everybody, every single practice and every single preseason game, that I was the guy that needed to be on the field more than any other receiver. And that's kind of the position that Theo's in. He knows where he stands. He knows who they brought in the draft. He knows how hard he has to work. Just like in that play, he knew he could have went down, but he said, you know what, I'm going to keep my feet. I'm going to show these guys that I'm one, great out the backfield, very durable, I can catch the ball, that I am one of your better running backs.
Worked hard on that
You want to make
carry.
talk about making a team. There, Jordan Thompson, number 82. We're going to watch him. Number 82 gets a block there. Theo cuts off it, but watch, he doesn't quit. Let it roll, and he's going to pick up another one, and that allows Theo to make the first down. Now, Was it either the best block? No. But the bottom line is he's playing with effort. He's trying to do something positive. It allows the play to develop.
You guys have told us this. Not every block has to be a pancake. I mean, even if you're getting somebody's way.
Thank you, because I wouldn't have played 7 years for sure.
It's about effort and activity. Stay active all the way till the whistle.
Here's George Wynn.
Listen, in football, it's not always going to be drawn up exactly how it looks on paper. But if you click that clicker in the meeting, you're sitting there watching the film, and one guy is more active than others, that's going to catch coaches' attention a lot more than the guy who's doing the X's and O's.
We were playing the Raiders in preseason one year, and their safety, Mike Davis, who had been like an all-pro, he was an older guy, and I was like a second-year player, and I'm down the field cutting him, trying to cut him, because it was legal. And he's like, dude, what you doing? You jump on my legs. I said, you make my car payment, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was trying to win a job, so I'm down there fighting. Obviously, he didn't like me diving at his knees, but
listen, you're trying to win a job. You're not trying to make a friend.
No.
There's Thompson getting rewarded on a quick hook from Kellen Moore.
You know, for a guy like Calvin Johnson, this game might not have the utmost importance. But to these young guys, to Thompson, to Reddick, you know, these guys are individuals that really want to take advantage of this moment. I mean, this is a gym to them. They don't know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen because we get to watch these guys for the next couple minutes.
They're doing it so far. Lions up by 7. Early touchdown pass, Matt Stafford to Golden Tate. And a field goal courtesy of Matt Prater as Detroit up 10-3. With 2 minutes left to go in this opening half. George Wynn just to the left shoulder of Kellen Moore. Hard count, got the just jump.
Seen Kellen slap the ball in disappointment because he saw that single safety receiver to his left. He wanted that go route. He was peeking at him a little bit. Kellen might have dropped that right in the bucket, right past the pylon.
Offside. Defense number 76. 5-yard penalty. Remains first down.
Doesn't mean he can't do it on this snap, does it?
You're right, but I don't know if they're going to give him that same type of coverage. To a quarterback's eyes, you see a single safety, press coverage all across the board. You're automatically picking one dude.
You're picking whoever you feel is the best in the free release. Yeah. You can get the high shoulder the quickest.
Yes, exactly. And you know what Matt used to do? He used to wink at me, telling me, hey, I'm coming to you, bro.
Moore wants to go route.
He went for it anyway.
Yep, Greg Salas. Yep.
But Marcus Williams does a nice job of getting inside position, never yielding any ground so that Salas could adjust to this throw, which was thrown inside a little bit.
Well, the difference between last play and this play, the cornerbacks were slightly off just a little bit. I mean, they backed up about 2 to 3 yards.
That's zone. They showed press. They're playing a 3D.
The play before was true press.
Yes,
I mean, inside leverage. All the receiver had to do was beat him on the outside, get body position. Would have been an easy touchdown. Kellen was expecting the same coverage. The defense knew what he was looking at. Backed his DBs off.
Needs 5 to move the chains. Screen, Zach Zenner. Balanced up inside the 20. This kid's an interesting story, isn't he? 5'11", 223, the rookie out of South Dakota State, who put his goals of being a surgeon on hold for a little while. Last 3 years, over 6,000 yards in school, 2,000 every single year. That's finished third all-time in FCS history.
You know, people always discredit guys who go to smaller schools.
Hey.
I think football is football.
Easy
I
now.
think football is football. If you put up big numbers, you're a football player. You got to respect it.
Third down throw, and it's a completion for a first down. Ooh. Good comeback route by Salas.
Now, we got Salas right here. It looked like a pivot route. We got press coverage, which is what we thought they had a few plays ago. Here's what he's going to do. Give him a two-step. He gets on the outside, swings him by with the right arm. That's just a pivot route.
Yeah.
And Kellen knows exactly where he's going to throw it, right on the outside, away from the DB. It's a good route.
And that's Kellen Moore's strength.
Oh,
the accuracy of that throw, thrown to the outside shoulder. Pretty good timing for guys that probably don't get a lot of reps together during the course of a practice.
Last year in the preseason, Moore completed 68.5% of his passes. A slant inside the 10 to Salas again.
So here we go. We just had Salas on a pivot route, outside release. Now the DB knows that he can release outside with strength. What does he do? He presses the outside, gives him a move. DB bites on it.
And uses his hands
because he's expecting what he just got beat on a few plays ago, which is good.
It's interesting how you can get separation, not just with your feet, but also with your hands.
Yeah.
Lions are hoping to cash in when we come back. Lions are knocking on the door again. Greg Sallis with a couple of catches on this drive. He spent the last 2 years with the Jets, played 18 games, couple of starts, had a touchdown catch. Would love to burn his old club before the half runs out.
And bring some pressure. They're showing it.
2 men in the slot to the right. 4 scrambling and lunging to the 10-yard line.
You know, they showed pressure with their linebackers. They even brought the safety in the outside, but then he peeled with the running back. So it's a green dog where if the running back stays and protects, you keep coming. But if he peels out, then you got to peel with him.
Good protection for the corner and knocked away, intended for Jeremy Ross.
See what you're going to see from the Jets defense. It's just a flat coverage. Hey, guys, we want you to set up right around the goal line and don't get beat. Now, this is a tough route. It almost looks like a broken route. I don't think it was necessarily, hey, Jeremy Ross, go out there, run, and stop right past the pylon. Just a miscommunication. Sometimes that happens when you get right back on the ball and try to do hurry-up offense.
Lions 3 for 6 on third downs tonight.
Keep an eye up top.
You almost want to throw it to the receiver right now if you were up top. I think that's Sallis up there.
It is. He looks that way. From the corner. And intercepted.
You know, for me, I never knew why you would attack and throw it over the top when the DB is waiting on you. If you got a guy who's 10 yards off, you got a big receiver like Sallis.
Throw a slant.
Just throw it to him right now. You don't even need a slant. Look how much room he has. Just give it to him right now. Let him go to work. The DB was in the end zone.
And that's just not a good throw by Kellen Moore. He threw it to the inside. That ball has got to be outside or out of bounds. You can't throw it to the inside when you have 4 to 5 yards of end zone to the side to work with. Let your receiver make a play. Let him adjust to the ball, use his body, and shield the defender. Kellen Moore like to have that back.
And we talk about communication and relationship and chemistry. If I was in that situation with Matt Stafford, I would look at him and say, hey, give it to me right now. Let me do the work. I'll get in the end zone with a guy 10 yards off.
Marcus Williams spoiled it. Oftentimes, in that situation, the quarterback's mindset, correct me if I'm wrong, is I want to make sure if I'm going to throw this, the only guy who can get it is my guy.
Right.
That's why you like to have that throw back. But overall, not bad performance by Kellen Moore here in the first half.
Not at all. I think he played well.
Made some throws, and I think Dan Orlovsky will get his chance in the second half to hold serve against Kellen Moore in the battle for the number 2 quarterback position.
It is a battle, and it's a good one. It's something that people have wanted to see in this town for a long time. You'll love the battles that are taking place. I wonder what Jim Caldwell thinks of his team's first half performance. He's with Jennifer Hammond. Jeff?
All right, thanks very much, guys. Jim, first drive for your team opening on offense. They had a great touchdown drive. Tell me what impressed you the most about that.
Well, you know, the precision was good. I think the rhythm was good. We didn't have a whole lot of miscues, and it was pretty smooth.
75 total yards of offense allowed by your defense this first half. Is there something that they're doing that's particularly of your liking?
You know, I think overall, the guys are giving the kind of effort that we're looking for and doing a pretty decent job, but we just got to tighten things up a little bit better. In the second half, we got to be better than we were in the first half, even with the young guys.
Even with you. All right, thanks very much, Jim. We'll see you in the second half. Guys?
Jen, it doesn't surprise us. Jim Caldwell's like many coaches. They're really never satisfied. They always want more. Lions had plenty to choose from early on. Special play by Golden Tate on the drive that opened the ball game. And now they lead it 10-3. Plenty to come on the halftime show. And then the second half, we invite you to stay with us. You're watching Lions preseason action on the Lions Television Network. Caldwell and the Lions in front 10-3 as we get set to start the second half. You'll see a lot of other guys taking reps for this club. Kyle Brinza, one of them. Kicker's Matt Prater. He signed a 3-year contract extension with this club. But Brinza is trying to put his game on tape out of Plymouth. Played at Notre Dame. Salim Hakeem is back for the Jets and watches this one sail by him. It'll be 1st and 10 for New York. To start this third quarter, Detroit's first half very impressive, over 100 yards both on the ground and through the air. Now a lot of those starters, Stephen Tulloch, Darius Slay, Darryl Tapp, in game to watch. But it's good to see that Stephen Tulloch is back in the middle, manning the middle for this club. Good leader. Understands the defense.
You know, I enjoyed my time playing with Stephen. He was an ultimate veteran. Knew exactly where he was on the field, and he delegated a lot of responsibility.
Jim Caldwell says he sets the tone for this defense as the Jets go to work and try to create some type of running attack, a running attack that actually ranked third in the NFL a year ago by averaging 145 yards per game. Darrell Richardson was the ball carrier.
Partly due to the fact they couldn't throw very well.
That's true.
Geno Smith
yeah,
struggled
because they were
throwing
dead
the ball,
they were
so
dead last in throwing.
Yeah, they were forced to run, and Rex Ryan felt that their passing game wasn't very effective, so let's run the ball, play good defense, don't turn it over, and try to be in the game in the fourth quarter.
Petty stays in at quarterback. The Cotton Bowl offensive MVP a year ago threw for 550 yards in a loss to Michigan State on a 2nd and 10. A fumble, and it's loose, and the Lions say they got it. It's more important who the striped shirts say, and they agree with him.
Well, that time, it's a Jerome Eskridge, number 35. He never gets it. It looks like he's going to gather it. But Diggs is right there along with, who was that? Was that Josh Bynes? Yeah, the linebacker. Both of them met at Eskridge, and when he's trying to pull it back in, they hit him. It came loose. That's why you stay with the play. We saw that on a Kellen Davis drop in the first half. Now on a fumble recovery. Good job defensively.
Dan Orlovsky takes over the controls of the quarterback spot. 10th-year pro out of UConn. Of course, played with the Lions as a 5th-round draft pick back in 2005. Those were those 2008 numbers. He'll go up top. He's looking for Salas. He's got him! 6 more!
So this is what we talked about earlier, guys. You get past coverage. We've seen him run routes on the outside. We've seen him break inside for a quick slant. Orlovsky saw something. He said, you know what, I'm going to attack that. Put the ball on the outside where only my receiver can get it. Really good throw. Even better catch just going up top and getting it.
But Salas gave him an area to throw the football because he was able to get inside away from the sidelines. If you get forced as a receiver too wide and you're right on the sidelines, there's nowhere for the quarterback to put the ball. Salas was physical. He kept his path up the field and allowed Orlovsky to use the sideline to get him the ball.
Another thing I liked about it, he didn't give it away. He didn't shoot his eyes to the quarterback too soon. He jumped up and planted before the DB even realized the ball was coming.
Brinza now for the extra point. And he was really good the other day in practice, and he remains really good here tonight. A 20-yard touchdown strike. Orlovsky to Salas in front of Dexter McDougal, and the Lions widen their lead to 14 on the Lions television network. Third catch of the night was a special one for Greg Salas, trying to make this club a 20-yard touchdown strike from Dan Orlovsky. The scoring drive presented by AAA. Salas's numbers on the night, and when you're trying to make a team, there is no rest for the weary. You stay out there on special teams, don't you?
Listen, the more you can do in the preseason, the better. Score a touchdown, go down and make a tackle on the next play.
Salim waits for it, won't get the chance to return it. Good kick by Brinza.
You know, we got to remember now, Salas is not a rookie or even a first or second. Right. He's a 5th-year player. So he has experience, and you can see the difference when you get him in the situation when you're going against 2s and 3s. Why he's been able to play 5 years in the NFL. He has ability, he has savvy, he has the knowledge how to work a guy, how to press him, how to run the pivot route. Nate, as you were saying, it's nice for Dan Orlovsky to come in here and have that matchup.
And Rube, you hit it on the head. He's a 5th-year guy, which means these are good minutes for him because he is going up against guys who you may think have lesser talent, which gives him the advantage. Coach said, hey, do you want to come out? He said, no, leave me in. I want to make more plays.
Petty on a bubble. DeVere Posey out of Ohio State. Kyle Van Noy's in now at the outside linebacker spot. He's got a lot to prove. 2nd-round draft pick trying to beat out Tahir Whitehead. Last year, played just 8 games because of a sports hernia.
It's one of those guys, you look at him physically, you think, this kid's got to be a player. He looks good. He's got the size, the strength. He can run. Now he just needs to play and show that he belongs at this level.
Petty, with pressure coming, delivers underneath for a minimal gain to Julian Hauser, a rookie out of Clarion College. So this defense under Terrell Austin in its second year sure didn't look like they had any type of learning curve a year ago. Could they be better this season with all of them fully on the same page right now from the get-go?
Well, that's one of the things about the NFL. It's going to be tough to tell. They could have a worse record this year and be a better team just because of their schedule. They have a tougher schedule this year, so you can't always look at the end at the record and how good a team is. Now, granted, you want to get this team into the playoffs and have them win that game and move on.
Oh, good play up the middle on a 3rd down and 2. Darrell Richardson's going absolutely nowhere.
And this is Cujo, number 63. He looked like a killer dog on that one. He does a great job of beating inside. Right here, we can take a look. He's going to use good rip inside, turns the shoulders. When you get those shoulders turned to the offensive lineman, that time it was Dakota Dozier. He's able to turn the shoulders. That gives you an alley as a defensive lineman to work up the field, and it constricts that gap which you're trying to contain. That attacking up the field defense we saw that time by the Lions front.
Something we've noticed in training camp. Chris Kasurek, the defensive line coach, really teaches these guys to use leverage and use their hands so very well. Amir Abdullah from the 25. No, that's Ryan Boyles. And he's dragged down at the 31-yard line. 17-3, Lions in front, hoping for more as the third quarter continues from Ford Field. You're watching the Lions Television Network. Lions looking for more. They're up 17-3. Jennifer Hammond has a special guest. Jen?
All right, thanks, guys. Standing by with Glover Quinn. And you guys were the second-ranked defense in the NFL last season. Where are you guys right now in this phase of camp as it pertains to where you want to be?
I mean, we're getting there. You know, it's a process. Obviously, still early in training camp, first preseason game. So, you know, we came out, wanted to do some things on offense, on defense, take a look at some things. And so we'll go back and look at it and continue to get better each and every week. And as long as we're ready to go come week 1, we'll be good.
One of the things that Jim Caldwell constantly says to us is some of the pieces may have changed, but we're not going to change what we do. What is it that you guys want to do that you can do so well to throw off other offenses?
Well, first thing we got to do, we got to stop the run. That's first and foremost. Regardless of who's in there, we got to be physical. We got to stop the run defensively and give our offense the ball. I mean, if you can't stop the run on defense, it doesn't matter what else you do well because teams just going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to control the clock, and they're going to dictate what they're going to do offensively. If you can stop the run and make it one-dimensional, you can take a lot of offenses out the game. And so first and foremost, we got to stop the run.
All right, thanks very much for your time, Glover.
Thank you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your night, guys. We're going to send it back upstairs to you.
How important was Glover Quinn a year ago? Fellas, he played 99.3% of the snaps for Detroit's defense last year. 99.3%.
One of the more quiet leaders in the NFL. Doesn't complain. Went out there, just made plays. Like I said earlier, the umbrella of that defense, such an intricate part of what they do.
Really good free agent signing, by the way. Maybe under the radar for some, but really good. Orlovsky's got all kinds of time. Oh, and he threaded the needle right at the 45-yard line for a first down. Greg Salas, yet again, has had a whale of a game so far.
A nice job by Orlovsky, but a better job of the offensive line. The Jets decide to only rush 4 up front. That you see in the middle, picking up, that's Cade doing a good job from the center position. Orlovsky really, as you said, Shep, threads the needle. Not a lot of room to put the ball. Good drop by the linebackers. Salas with a little pivot and choice route coming back to the inside. He's having quite a game.
Zach Zenner, the tailback, and gets the call. Good run. Had a little more, but tripped up at the 44-yard line. First down.
Good job of pressing the hole, and he really does a good job of getting the edge of the hole. You don't want to try to run wide. When he sees the gap, we're going to get a look here. He's going to come to the left. Now watch him do a good job up, and then he dips away, sees the opening, takes his legs away from the defender, Nice job. All he did was put up huge numbers at South Dakota State, Zach Zenner. Now, the odds are against him here. It's tough because they're fairly deep in running back, especially we've seen what Abdullah has done so far.
Undrafted free agent. Could have gone to a lot of different places, but said Curtis Motkins wanted me, the running backs coach. So he wanted to be here. I mean, it's unbelievable. 6,548 career yards. That's what it adds up to. But you talk about a nose for the end zone. How do those numbers grab you?
Listen, football is football. Like I said before, it doesn't matter where you play. If you're a good running back, the league will find you.
Yes.
And what I've noticed right now with these running backs, they have similar teachings because when they get north and south after making a move,
they square up.
They square up, put that foot in the ground and get upfield, which is something that most running backs don't do. They don't sniff the end zone and get their nose upfield after making a plant. But all these running backs tonight, which is a very bright sign for this team, have done that.
Zenner gets the first down. Good lead block by Iguanegu. And Henderson made the tackle.
The running back position has to be refreshing for the coaches to really look at tonight. They've been the most consistent part to me. I mean, there's been some good things in the passing game. Golden Tate started us off early with the crossing route, getting in the end zone. Greg Salas is making some plays. But the running back position, I mean, they're really controlling the clock. And with the weapons that this team has, being able to run the ball is going to be critical. And they're doing that tonight.
Let's not fool ourselves. It's an offense that underachieved in most people's eyes last year. They had big expectations because of the players they had. But because of the injuries to that offensive line, they were inconsistent offensively. They couldn't put up the numbers. They couldn't possess the ball. And they didn't put up the points that if they could have what maybe even 80-90% of what we thought they were going to do with the way the defense played, this team really could have made some noise in the playoffs.
Well, that's the running back position, and that's just how important it is. If you have a couple of guys, maybe a running back by committee, it's George Bell and Amir Abdullah. Theo Reddick makes his way in there. If you have guys that can make plays and control the clock, it'd be easy for Calvin Johnson to do his job. It'd be easy for Golden Tate to make plays.
Zenner again. Let's keep in mind, though, and look, Curtis Motkins has reminded us of this during training camp. These guys have to be able to do more than just run the football. He's got to be able to pass protect and catch the ball out of the backfield as well.
Well, protection is a big-time part of it. When you got a quarterback that can do everything, he can drop back traditionally, he can roll out the pocket, he can bootleg. Matt Stafford is one of the more versatile quarterbacks because he has good movement inside the pocket. So you're going to have a running back that can pick up the blitz on the third down.
Tough night for Aaron Henderson, who missed all of last year, is back, but now injured for the Jets. Stay with us. We'll be back.
You know, there's a new feature this season at Ford Field. It is the MGM Grand Detroit Tunnel Club. And right now, I am sitting in one of the seats, 72 of these seats. It is the new addition in the West End Zone here, the best seats in the NFL. The club holds 132 guests and is open 3 hours before each game, all the way through and after the game. The team just sold the last 4 seats today, but there's still room in Club 200 here at Ford Field. And like I mentioned, this is a pretty creamy deluxe seat right in the West End Zone. You get to see all of the action. 72 lucky fans get to sit in these seats during the game. Shep, you guys should be down here.
You're important. Now, you know people. That's no fair. Here's the other thing. We walked by, that is, as the team is walking out, and you see people sitting there having a beverage, all of them with their cell phones taking videos of these players walking out. It is so cool for them to get that close to these guys.
How's it when they're kids? And you're an 8 or 9 year old kid.
Yeah.
You get to walk, sit there and take pictures of Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford walking by, and then you get to come in here and sit in the end zone. If Nate Burleson was still playing, you could watch him get a touchdown.
Listen, I feel like a guy who graduated high school, came back to the high school, and the high school has got so much better. Where was those seats at when I was here? You imagine me jumping into somebody's arms after a touchdown?
You might not want to leave. They're comfy, cozy, and leather seats. Orlovsky dumps it underneath, and it's incomplete.
But I can appreciate the team and the organization in the city and the stadium here at Ford Field willing to upgrade it and give fans that much more of an experience. I mean, you see stadiums around the nation doing it, and here we are adding into it. You know, you have the lounge and now those seats right there that are absolutely fabulous. I'll tell you what, if I wasn't up here, that'd be my area right there, sitting right in the end zone, getting that high-definition look at a guy running a fade route. Can you imagine Calvin Johnson running at you in 3D after scoring a touchdown?
Big
Amazing.
money seats, big money, right? 49-yard field goal attempt by Kyle Brinza, and he bangs it through. Good job, young man. He's putting together some really fine film in practice and in his preseason debut. 20-3 Lions. Detroit Lions football is presented by Henry Ford Health System. Join our team, register, fundraise, game on December 12th, Ford Field. By Ford Motor Company, introducing the all-new Ford F-150, the future of tough. And by Family Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Family's not just our name, it's the way we do business. Alongside Rob Rubik, Nate Burleson, I'm Matt Shepard, Jennifer Hammond patrolling the sidelines for us. Lions impressive, up 20-3. Salim Hakeem looks at this one, drop outside the end zone. All but one kickoff for Detroit so far tonight have been touchbacks. This scoring drive is presented by Wallside Windows. 11 plays, didn't have to go very long, but it was a long kick by the kid out of Plymouth, Michigan.
49-yard field goal. It's no slouch right there.
No,
He's putting together some great film. And that's what you want. You want consistency. Like Rube talked about earlier, you don't want to make mistakes. You want to show consistent film, and it doesn't matter if you're a running back, wide receiver, DB, and now kicker showing us what he can do.
Bryce Petty's getting a lot of snaps here for the Jets tonight. Once the throw, pressure comes, unloads, caught on a comeback route right around 26-yard line or so. Gear up for football season at the Detroit Lions official online store. Shop.DetroitLions.com. Dan Orlovsky is one of those guys who understands this system. Understands his role, too. That's important. I mean, you got to know where you stand on a team. Terrell Richardson, the lone tailback behind Bryce Petty. Good play action, didn't fool Van Noy, and he forced him into short arming.
You know, getting back to Dan Orlovsky, you're talking about, you know, his position and how he's aware and what his role is. That's one that people always say, oh, backup quarterback, hold the clipper, what a great job. But it's also a very difficult job because you get limited reps during the course of the week in practice. Yet, any play in the NFL, you got to be called upon when your starter gets hurt to come in and be ready like you've been playing the entire season. So when you're not playing, cushy job. But when you get forced into action, it's very difficult.
And there lies the balance. Can you be that guy that can sit on the sideline and be ready at a split-second moment?
3rd and 4. Just out of the reach. Petty paid the price, and the Jets are forced to punt it again. Little nugget here. Detroit has forced New York. New York's only 1 for 8 on 3rd down conversions tonight.
Well, some late pressure coming by the Lions. They brought a corner blitz. Quandre Diggs, young man out of Texas, who's been making a little bit of noise in training camp. Let's look at Quandre.
And you know what I've noticed over 11 preseasons is when a rookie quarterback is in, defense coordinators, they like to dial things up. You want to test your defense, see if they can get to the QB, but more importantly, you want to see if the QB can handle them. Right now, Petty just can't handle what the Lions are bringing to him.
TJ Jones, part of that 5th receiver mix, spins his way close to the 40-yard line. Lions in front 20-3 with a flag on the play, though.
You know, I was just going to make a comment, too. Man, there hasn't been very many flags here for a preseason game, and then you're looking, there's some laundry on the field. But overall, pretty well played.
Well, if you watched the very first preseason game of the year, the Hall of Fame game last weekend, it was, I mean, there were a ton of flags.
Yeah.
It's not the case here tonight.
During the kick, holding number 24 of the receiving team. 10-yard penalty from the end of the kick. Detroit keeps the ball. 1st down.
The holding call against Nevin Lawson, last year's 4th rounder. Trying to make an impression. It's not the way he wanted to go about it. Dan Orlovsky already with a TD toss tonight. His team's up by 17. Harvey's game summary, in case you missed that first-team offense, they were really sharp.
Well, they started out early on. We saw the Stafford Golden Tate, which we saw a lot last year. But the new wrinkle is number 21, Amir Abdullah.
The rookie out of Nebraska showing a little bit of lightning in the bottle, and then Golden Tate does what he does best.
It was good.
And that's showing off when he scores.
Oh, yeah, you got to show off. I mean, that's what we do as receivers. We're divas. But it was good to see Matt Stafford comfortable, composed in the pocket. You want to see that all season long, and Golden Tate doing what he does best.
I thought it was also encouraging. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. I thought that offensive line did a really good job protecting him and paving some of those holes. Let's not forget the guys who stick their hands in the dirt every single play.
Yeah, well, people don't realize that it doesn't happen often for a running back to break the line of scrimmage and not be touched for about 3 or 4 yards. We saw it last year with the Dallas Cowboys and what DeMarco Murray was doing. But what we saw earlier in this game was these running backs getting to the second level fairly quickly. So you got to pat these guys on the offensive line on the back and say, you know what, you're protecting the quarterback, keeping them upright, and also creating big holes for running backs, and really good running backs at that.
So important. Last year, the offensive line allowed 45 sacks, guys. 45. That's up from 23 the year before. T.J. Jones shoved out of bounds with a flag on the play. So really important that you alleviate that center pocket pressure. Give the quarterback a chance to step up. If the edge comes from, or if the pressure comes from the edge, it's one thing.
For sure.
When it's in your face, it's totally different, isn't it?
You know, and people were concerned about the amount of touchdowns that Calvin had and the amount of touchdowns that Golden had. And then they kind of wrapped that up by saying this offense
Prior to
is
the pass, holding, defense number 53.
So we get a
5-yard penalty, automatic
on the defense. But what it says more importantly is that we're not going to give our quarterback time. Oftentimes we talk about keeping the quarterback upright. It's not just keeping him upright, it's keeping guys out of his face as well. If you see pressure coming on the outside or in the interior, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Stafford. Then he has to step back, throw off his back foot, sidearm throws, all the things fundamentally you don't want your quarterback to do. But if you can protect him, allow him to be comfortable in that pocket, I guarantee you will see this offense explode like no other season.
George Wynn.
You know, getting back to that point you're making, Nate, is I don't mind that Matthew Stafford throws sidearm. I really don't. I think it's a weapon that all quarterbacks need to develop. I do mind when he does it all the time.
Right.
It should be a weapon. It shouldn't be a crutch. And I think with the pressure you guys are talking about that came up the interior between the guards last year, getting that the offensive front and defensive front put right in his lap, he couldn't step into a throw. Any quarterback will tell you they're much more effective if they can step into their throws, if they have vision down the field. And by what they've done with the draft and the free agency signing Ramirez, they should be better in that front three.
2nd and 10, that one batted right back in Dan Orlovsky's face.
And just to dive in there and give the people at home a little bit more of a visual, when a quarterback steps into his throw, he's stepping exactly where he's supposed to deliver the ball. Now, if a quarterback has to throw off his back leg or he's not planted right, then that front foot isn't going to be in the direction of where he's throwing. So you got to imagine if pressure's coming and my quarterback has to throw off of his back foot, off his side foot, then automatically the fundamentals, the motion of throwing the ball is going to be off. And you can't always blame the quarterback and say, what is he doing? You got to look at the pressure as well.
3rd down and 10 for Orlovsky and the Lions. 5 for 10 on 3rd down conversions tonight. Good pocket, looking downfield. Watch Salas, what a grab! At the 45-yard line, Greg Salas is stealing the offensive show tonight.
And here we got press coverage. He just tacks on the outside, but what he does at the end, he squeezes over the top. The DB lost him for a split second. That's because Greg Salas was trying to fight his way over the top, which is hard to do. You talked about early, Rubes. You got to give your quarterback room to throw the ball. And what you seen right there was a veteran receiver taking advantage of a young quarterback.
Center.
I have a chance to work with a lot of young receivers. And the thing I always tell them is the quicker you can pick up the flight of the ball as a receiver, the better receiver you're going to be. And Kelvin showing his approval for that,
Hey, listen,
reverse number, 81-18. But when you can pick up the flight of the ball, you're going to make your quarterback look good because you can make the adjustment as a receiver to make every throw look maybe better than it actually is.
And when you get the big dog Calvin Johnson nodding of approval, then you know you did something right. I was older than Calvin. I am older than Calvin. But when he always gave me that nod, hey, that was a nice play, Nate, made me feel good inside.
George Wynn on a cutback.
So we talked about the preseason and if it matters, and do guys want to play in the second half, or do you want to make a play and go out? Greg Salas, he scored a touchdown, went into halftime, could have easily went to his receiver coach and said, hey, you know what? Let me fall back. I want to chill. I made enough plays. Let me get ready for next week. But he's thinking in his head, there's a lot of young corners out here. I'm a veteran. I know how to run routes. These cornerbacks are a lot more scared than I am. And I know the position he's in. So he's saying, you know what? I'm going to keep making plays. One, it's going to get everybody in this stadium familiar with who I am. It's going to make my quarterback a lot more confident in who I am. And more importantly, I'm going to be more confident going into this week's practice and next week's game.
And maybe some other coaches around the league will take note in case he is available. Orlovsky across the middle. Good closing opportunity on Dexter McDougal. He made the most of it. The second-year pro out of Maryland.
Well, Dan Orlovsky obviously developed some chemistry quickly with some of these receivers. You see Andrew Peacock. That time, Andrew was on the practice squad last year. Spent some time here. I think he did a couple of times. He was released and picked signed back up. But Dan Orlovsky, good protection again. We're talking about that offensive line. The backups seem to be doing a good job.
Brinson trying to pin it inside the 10. Oh, and the Jets do him a huge favor. I'm not sure exactly what Walter Powell was thinking there, but took it at the 1 yard line. Couldn't get past the 5. Didn't that look like that was headed toward the end zone?
It did look like it was headed toward the end zone. Great play by the gunner, getting his hand, knocking it back inside. I don't know what the return man was doing. You got to let that go. Move out the way. These are the mistakes you don't want to have. Almost got knocked into the end zone, which would have resulted in a safety.
You're asking for trouble there, right? Rubes always says it's risk and reward.
That's not the gamble you want to take at this point in the preseason.
That's a good point.
Really good play by special teams, the Detroit Lions.
Forces the offense to a limited play call here, right? Zach Stacy, the third-year pro out of Vanderbilt, who was a St. Louis Rams draft pick, but was traded to the Jets on draft day. A couple years in St. Louis. Long way to go for New York. Maybe relished by Bryce Petty to show what he can do. 2nd and 9 as we make our way to the end of the third. Powell makes the catch in front of Nevin Lawson. Nevin Lawson last year missed out just a couple of games, had a tackle but a foot injury in week 2, forced him to the sidelines for the rest of the season.
And we touched on it a little earlier, guys. There's different reasons why these games are important to different individuals. There was one point in my career where I was trying to prove that I can be a compliment to Calvin Johnson. And then there was another point in my career where I can prove that I could bounce back from an injury. I said Lawson had a foot injury. He's taking advantage of this time, trying to prove that he can be healthy and be productive for the entire regular season.
Petty will throw on 3rd down and convert. Second 3rd down conversion of the night for the Jets. That's it. And they move the chains. Well, if nothing else, New York's getting Bryce Petty a ton of snaps, and Detroit's giving him various looks. I don't know how in-depth those looks will be, how complicated they may be compared to the regular season, but at least he's seeing something at the professional level. He'll have to wait till the 4th quarter to see if he can take advantage of getting out from a deep end zone pin by his club's special teams. 15 more minutes to go. Lions look very comfortable. So does Greg Salas specifically. It's 20-3 Lions on the Lions television network. Come on back. Start the 4th quarter with the Jets playing catch-up as they have all night long. Rob Rubick, Nate Burleson, Jennifer Hammond, Matt Shepard with you here at Ford Field. The first of 4 preseason games. Bryce Petty goes to work. The rookie out of Baylor connects at the 20-yard line.
Nice job by Philip Hunt, the defensive end, to the boot side. He had an inside stunt going on. He came underneath, but you talk about someone who adjusts quickly. He was able to kind of right the ship and get work back up the field and force Petty to throw the ball low before he wanted to. There's a look. Philip Hunt, there's another one, defensive ends.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about the tackles, but the end positions are not settled either.
Draw. Terrell Richardson. Past the 25, 26, 27-yard line or so. Josh Bynes in on the tackle.
That's a big body there.
Yeah, that's Taylor
Have you seen him in
Mays.
person yet, Nate?
Yeah, well, Taylor Mays went to my high school, O'Day High School in Seattle, so I followed his career. We actually donated to the weight room, so me and him split the cost and gave our high school a new weight room. And he's just a big body. He's been like that since high school. Very fast, very strong, prototypical everything. You know, we talked about earlier, certain guys you see, and you say, that guy's made to be a special player. But right now, it's all about putting it together and seeing if he can be that guy for this team.
Signed here just after the mandatory minicamp. Said that he felt really comfortable with the coaches and the players. And they were talking about a second-round pick now. That was a second-round pick of San Francisco, traded to Cincinnati and played 6 years there.
He's had some ups and downs throughout his career. There was times where people saw his speed and his strength and said, well, does that match up with what we see on film? And I think at some point he realized I have to play a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot more aggressive at this league. I mean, at this level in this league. And he's starting to do that. And I think the veteran mindset he has now, he's understanding when to be explosive, when to use his strength. And hopefully he can put that together for the Lions.
He can also help this team on special teams. Petty, pressured by Wooten, connects shy of the first down.
He is 6'3", 236.
And can run.
That's sick.
And
He's a
can
safety.
Run. Yeah. Yeah, and he's not just big. I mean, he can run. And if you get in that weight room with him, you'll understand that he can push up as much weight as the linebackers can. But oftentimes, that's just not enough. Guys, we know. You can't just have all the measurables. You got to be able to piece it together. The football IQ has to be there. You got to know when to use your strength. You got to know when to tough it out.
Second and 4. Quick throw, but incomplete.
That Travis Lewis, inside stunt from the inside linebacker position, getting his hands up. There's a look at Travis, getting pressure. We get another look here. Coming pretty much clean. Good job not, it's amazing we're saying good job not hitting the quarterback in the head now, but really as a defender, you have to watch where you hit him. When you when you close on the quarterback and you hit him in the shoulders, because you go any higher than that, you're going to get a flag.
Well, you talked about blitzing. 2 years ago, Detroit blitzed only 18% of the time. Last year, they blitzed 25% of the time. That's a big increase.
And that shows that you have faith in your back end. If you don't have faith in your corners and your secondary, you can't get away with that.
Petty on a quick slant, incomplete. Bynes and Condre Diggs in on the coverage there. Diggs, the rookie out of Texas. They like his upside, fellas. Just a 6th-round pick, but a 4-year starter at UT, where he was 9th all-time because he makes plays, 9th all-time in interceptions with 11.
Wow, it's a big play by Diggs, and he was in the slot, which is hard because you got short distance, you got to cover some short ground. He stuck his in the ground and got to the ball before the receiver did. It's a big-time play for a nickelback. A big-time third-down situation.
T.J. Jones waits for it. On the run. And a couple of men miss. Dragged down at the 45.
I love it. I'm partial to number 13 now.
I know you are.
Come on, buddy. Get in the end zone for me.
He's got to earn it. He'll get a chance to get in the end zone. He's going to stay on the field.
I see it, 13.
With his glove up 23. I know it's just the preseason, but the Lions look pretty good, especially their first stringers. One of those first stringers had a touchdown early on. Golden Tate caught up with Jennifer Hammond moments ago. Jen?
All right, Golden, you guys kind of pick up where you left off out there for a handful of plays, but the offense seems to be moving quite well.
Yeah, I think we did a fantastic job of going out there, executing what we've been doing in practice, and like you said, we're moving, and we're excited about the opportunity this year.
I know there's a lot of questions about the offensive line and how long it may take them to sync up, but it appears that those guys are pretty settled so far.
Yeah, I've been impressed with what they've done throughout camp, and also today. I'm impressed with our offensive line. They're moving. creating holes, giving pockets for the quarterbacks. Our young fella Amir's done a great job of running the ball, along with the other back, Theo and Zenner. So we're, like I said, I can't say enough. We're excited. Tonight I'm more excited than I have ever been.
By all accounts, this is a new Matt Stafford this season. What do you see from him that impresses you so much so far?
I mean, I can speak on the pass for 6 that I caught. He put that on point. I think if he throws that ball even a little bit behind me, I don't score right there. So he placed the ball perfectly, understands offense even more than he did last year. Been a tremendous leader for us, and we're excited. Well, if we can protect Matthew, we're going to be special this year.
Now you just sit on the bench and play role of cheerleader for your buddy Salas?
Absolutely. I'm happy to see our guys ball out. I mean, that's the whole point of these games, to carry over what you're doing in practice over to a game-like situation. I think that's what our guys are doing. We're playing smart, good football, and our defense is about to get a turnover.
All right, thanks very much, Golden. Back up to you guys.
And T.J. Jones with a nice catch moments ago. He brought up Matt Stafford. Jen asked him the question. Jim Caldwell said that Stafford has what it takes to win. He has the necessary qualities of a championship quarterback. He's talented and tough. You have recently spoke out, Nate Burleson, in support of Matt Stafford. Why so?
Well, I've seen the growth. I've seen him go from a young guy with a strong arm and a cannon that just wants to fit every ball into every space, and to a guy that knows and has the discernment now when to put a little loft on the ball, when to take something off it, when to place it on the sideline. Golden Tate spoke on it. He said he put the ball in a place where only I can get it and score. I love that play earlier. I think that was the play of the game. Matt was composed in the pocket. He let that ball go with anticipation in between 3 defenders. Golden ran underneath it, got in the end zone. I just think right now he's at a point in his career where he wants to go from one of the really good quarterbacks in this league to one of the elite.
Rob, you liked him from the get-go. You like his skill, but you like his mind just as much. You think he reads defense?
Yeah, I think people underestimate what a competitor Matthew Stafford is, just because he doesn't show it on his face or in his actions. He's highly competitive, and I like him. I think there's about 25 other NFL teams, 20 to 25, that would love to have him as their starting quarterback. And I just think he's getting close to putting it together, and the weapons are there, and you look at his numbers.
Well, you know, what people got to understand is that Matt is young still. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you got Peyton Manning, who's 39 years old, starting quarterback in this league, and Matt's still fairly young in his 20s.
Yeah, but he has played 6 years.
He has played 6 years, but in 6 years, he's put up a lot of numbers. But more importantly, his football IQ has risen. And that's what you want out of a quarterback, a guy that has the physical tools to get smarter every single year. And that's why I think everybody that knows football is on his side, and they understand that this is the right quarterback for the job. He is deserving of the money. He has another year under Lombardi, and I think their relationship is going to grow. Matt's going to have confidence in his play calling and vice versa with Lombardi and his playmaking ability.
We should also note, roughly, depends on who starts at left guard, but overall, you've got 4 starters who are 24 years or younger up front.
Yeah.
Guys like Travis Swanson, possibly Laken Tomlinson, Larry Warford, Riley Reif, Adrian Waddle, if he starts at the right tackle spot. Really young guys up front, but Jim Caldwell says he feels really good about the depth, loves the physicality of his offensive line, but they need to keep performing. Desmond Martin is into the game. He's out of Wayne State. He's a good story, too. I mean, he's a guy who everybody talks about, Joyke Bell being from, Benton Harbor in downtown Detroit, playing at Wayne State, and suddenly you got Desmond Martin trying to put some good film on.
Yeah, and, he's getting some reps now, but the one we haven't talked about, because we've been talking a lot about Matthew, is Zach Center's doing a nice job. He's had a couple nice runs in his drive, had a good run early in the game. He really hits the hole and presses it, good shoulder lean. Does a nice job. Offensive linemen appreciate a guy that will stick your nose in there.
Just had a nice block, too, on a 3rd and 6, but an incomplete pass intended for Andrew Peacock. Good play by Zenner to find that guy coming from the edge and kind of slide from left to right to give Orlowski that extra beat.
And you can see Orlowski, he almost didn't expect it to get picked up, which is why he was kind of leaning back just a tad when he let go of that ball. You got to step into it. We talked about early, Rubes. If you're going to get a ball delivered right away, you got to step right into it. You got to have confidence in the guy who's picking up that blitz. And Zenner came over right away and picked it up. If you would have stepped up in the pocket, got it to the receiver, maybe it would have been a completion.
Kyle Brinza looks to bang one through from 41 yards. Hit one from 49 earlier. And this one is true to form. 23-3. Lions continue to pad their lead. Brinza putting some good film. for somebody out there. 8.5 left on the Lions television network. 3 field goals for the Lions tonight. They're in front by 20 with about 8.5 remaining in this one. Scoring drive presented by Gardner White. Kyle Brinza with his second field goal of the night, both from more than 40. Caps off an 8-play, 33-yard drive.
Timing's everything, Matthew, isn't it?
It is.
If Brinza was here last year, he'd probably be their kicker. You know, all the problems they had in their kicking game. I mean, he's shown the ability to kick it out of the end zone. I think he has 2 or 3 touchbacks, 2 long field goals right through the uprights. So, you know, like you said, put together some nice film. Then he gets signed by another team. There's another big kick.
He's got a strong leg, there's no doubt about it. We'll talk about that kicking situation, how it's been solidified this year compared to this time a year ago. Stay with us. You're watching the Lions Television Network.
Inside stem over route with Golden Tate. What I want you guys to focus on is the fact that he wasn't open. You hear it all the time that a quarterback throws somebody open. That's what Stafford did. Threw it in between 3 guys. Golden Tate ran underneath it. He kept himself flat and then ran on the outside and got in the end zone.
You said he kept himself flat. And he also flattened it after the catch to get underneath the safety, which gave him the ability to get to the sidelines.
Yeah, really good play. My favorite play of the night.
I bet it was. Matt Prater is now a favorite for the Lions. He's the new kicker, not just this year, but at the end of last year. Why? Because at this time a year ago, the kicking situation was an absolute mess. They drafted Nate Freese in the 7th round out of Boston College. He lasted just a few games. Then they brought in Alex Henry after a number of different players came in to kick for this club. Henry didn't last long either, just a couple of games. They brought in Matt Prater. He solidified that job and signed a contract in the offseason, appreciating what Detroit's faith meant to him. So now they don't have to worry about it at all. Prater in his 9th year out of Central Florida.
Does he get paid tonight at all? Hey, look at him.
Hey, listen, if we get paid, my guess is if we get paid, he gets paid.
Is he?
No, he's just kicking it. I don't know if he kicked, but he's just kicking it.
Yeah, okay.
Got hit by Chris Owens there on the Petty completion. But hey, look, I mean, you can say what you want about kickers, but last year they were pretty important.
Yes, they were very
Jim
important.
Caldwell told us before, earlier in the week, he said, look, the one game that bothered me most, everyone talks about the Dallas loss in the playoff. The game that bothered me most was the game against Carolina. Felt like we should have won that game, and I agree with him. Petty's got time. Oh, knocked away, nearly intercepted. And of course, all the kickers stay together, right?
Yeah, and they all go back and play video games at 3 in the morning or get a tea time. Yeah, here's why I struggle with kickers. Back in the day when I played, we had 2-a-days, and Coach would understand because he's been around that long. We had 2-a-days, full metal jacket for 2 weeks straight. Every night, there goes Eddie Murray by my window. He's going out, he's going to go out and have a drink. You're just beat dead. All you want to do is hit the rack, go to sleep. They're kicker and punter, Jimmy Arnold. They're going out, having a good time. Next day, they punt, kick at practice a little bit, and maybe go golf 9 between practice.
Now, I second that. Training camp, I'm dehydrated. I'm running into the locker room trying to figure out a way to replenish my body. It's halfway through practice, so I got to hustle back out. And then there's the kickers right there in the training room, laid up. You would think they were taking senior pictures the way they were propped up on the table, one arm on their hip, watching soap operas. I said, what? Whoa, what's going on? Oh, we'll be back out there in a little bit.
Hold on a sec. Let's just make sure everybody knows. You're tight with Murray and Arnold.
Oh, I love Eddie and Jimmy both.
I love my kickers.
That's why I can say this. Ball, penalty reinforced, and in spot of the foul, 10 yards. Detroit keeps the ball, first down.
All right. Penalty against the Lions. They've got 7 minutes to go in this preseason opener. They're up by 20. A lot of people smiling, Jim Caldwell included. Beautiful shot of our town right there on the Lions Television Network. Not a bad job. Talking to Matt Stafford, Kellen Moore, Dan Orlovsky. Stafford all have had their moments, and now it's time for a new quarterback as the Lions go to work. The guys trying to make sure that they do what they can to impress the coaches and warrant more. It's Garrett Gilbert out of SMU. Big kid, 6'4", 220. Doesn't get a whole lot of reps in training camp. We all understand why.
But this is why these games are so important. When you get 7 minutes left in the game and you're in there to control the rest of the fourth quarter, you can do everything right at this moment. The pressure's off. Just don't turn the ball over. Don't make a mistake. And like we talked about before, other teams are watching. Every game is a resume. So this film is going to go out. Just like number 19 right here, the young fella, Jared Haggins, he wants to go out and do something. He's going to block his butt off. I can tell you that for sure. He's going to harass all these DBs that are sitting in front of him, and if they give him a chance to catch the ball, which is highly unlikely, they'll take advantage of it.
Listen, he's looked pretty good in camp, actually. With good hands out of Florida State. Peacock weaving his way for a first down. We liked him a year ago in the preseason, but sometimes numbers are stacked against you. This kid out of Appalachian State can flat out play.
Yeah, the thing is, when you're a free agent like Andrew was, you really have to be selective, if you can, on where you take your trade, because you want to go to a team that maybe is not as deep in the receiving core, and this team in the Lions, that's a tough team to make last year. It's going to be tougher this year because I believe they're much deeper.
That's a good point. Sometimes it's not up to the player. Oftentimes the agent's telling you one thing, and you may say, well, listen, I want to go somewhere where there isn't a Calvin Johnson, where there isn't a Golden Tate. And then the agent's saying, well, I feel like this is the best fit for us. That's when you have to separate yourself from the agent and make a decision as a man. You know, you're 21, 22 years old, and yes, you got to lean on the experience and intelligence of an agent, but you know what? You got to make a decision based off of where you think you'll fit the best. Hopefully this is it. You know, he'll have some opportunities throughout the preseason, and if he lands here, great. If not, he'll put enough on the field that other teams will notice.
You have to know the league, too. He's at Appalachian State's all-time leading receiver in terms of catches. You see what Detroit has done on the ground. Beating the Jets down. Desmond Martin lowers the shoulder. He's had a couple of impressive runs. Keeps the legs turning. Past the 45, close to the 46-yard line. This is what he does. It's all grade A effort by that young man.
We talked about the depth at wide receiver. How about the depth at running back? That's another position that is going to be very important to the success of this offense. But you got guys that one can lower their shoulder and get in between gaps. You got a few really quick, explosive individuals, and Theo Reddick, Amir Abdullah, Joyke Bell, who will get healthy and show what he's done over the last few years. That is one position that is going to have to shake itself out throughout the rest of the preseason.
Center bouncing to the outside. Got back to the 45. Well, they need explosive plays. A year ago, Detroit had just 6 carries of 20 yards or more. Only 2 teams had fewer than that, the Giants and the Bears. So that's 28th ranked rushing offense. Has to be better this year.
Well, let me date myself just a little bit. I'll go a few years back and to all the Lions fans still tuned in and listening. You remember when Javid Best was on the offense. And I remember we were playing Chicago. We threw a screen pass to him, and he must have took it about 80. Nobody got a hand on him. And at that point, we knew we had one of the most explosive running backs in the game. As we see a really good catch by Peacock here. But that's what people want. They want a guy that can come out the backfield, can catch the ball, whether it's a screen play, a dump off, a check down, but can get upfield in a very explosive manner. Add that to Calvin Johnson. Add that to Golden Tate and a couple of tight ends who are shaking themselves out, Ebron and Pettigrew. You need an explosive running back. I mean, this league is built around explosive players. And if you could find that guy in the host of running backs that the Lions have, then holy smokes, every defense is going to have to watch out.
Center. Boy, he hits the hole nicely, doesn't it? And you guys have mentioned it more than one time, that shoulder lean that you've talked about.
He hugs it pretty tight, and a nice job by Corey Robinson, the left tackle, big number 70.
7th round draft pick out of South Carolina.
Good job with the kickout blocks, and Center did a good job of squeezing the hole.
Robinson trying to fight his way through that traffic at the right tackle spot. Adrian Waddle on the pup list right now. Cornelius Lucas started here tonight. Michael Williams, the former tight end at Alabama, drafted here in the 7th round a couple of years ago as a tight end, switched over to tackle. He's been impressive too. Still a lot to shake out. 2 minutes left in this one. Lions in control. You're watching the Lions Television Network. 23-3 Lions have led from the very opening drive when Matt Stafford and the Lions engineered a nice drive, a perfect drive, if you will. Amir Abdullah has been very impressive. He's gained a lot of headlines in training camp, and he sure didn't disappoint tonight. Greg Salas has thrust himself into the mix of that final wide receiver position. Zach Center continues to impress too.
Yeah, I like him. I'm telling you, he's got quick. He's got a little Danny Woodhead in him. Another D2 guy.
Yeah. A little bit bigger than Danny Woodhead.
Yeah.
Feels his way through that hole pretty well, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he's gaining ground, Shep. He doesn't stop in the hole. He's kind of, we call that shallow cuts, where you're still getting north and south, but you're doing a little bit of east and west with the hips at the same time. Look at good numbers.
Really good numbers. Wants to be a surgeon. Deferred his
Why are you doing
enrollment
this
for a year, right? You know?
If I could be a surgeon, I wouldn't be out there. Unless you want to, create some business on yourself there, to your own knees.
Let's hope he's not hurting his hands at all. Yeah. Football, right? That's what I love about football in general. There are so many guys, so many stories that a lot of people may not know, or they might know and forget, so it's our job to refresh them a little bit on it.
And we're doing a great job of that. Giving kudos to us as a team and the people that work behind the scenes, helping us find these stories behind the guys in the jerseys, because from the outside looking in, it's just a bunch of physical athletes going out there playing a violent sport. But each guy has his own path, and trust me, there is a lot of storylines that you would truly enjoy about these professional athletes.
Best formation in football right here.
Oh, man, there's nothing like it.
If you're on the victory end of it, right?
Listen, we would fight our way on the field to try to get in the victory. You're pulling at each other. We don't even have our gloves on anymore, but you just want to be out there so you can look at your QB and say, listen, we did it. One down. Another victory for the Lions.
Well, Jim Caldwell's team has high expectations. I don't know what people feel around the NFL or in this town or other NFL markets, but they have high expectations. He expected his club to come out and perform at a high level, and for the most part, as he gives a hug to the first-year head coach, Todd Bowles, there in New York, who was last year's assistant coach of the year in Arizona. So far, it looks pretty good.
Well, listen, I don't want to dive too far back in the past, and I know it's tough years, but I remember the team going 0-16 and then 2-14, and then I joined the team, and there was a certain sense of pride that just wasn't here. It was almost lost. The city wanted it, the players wanted it, but it's different now. There's a different level of respect from the outside looking in. When other teams come to play the Lions, when they know they have the Lions on the schedule, it's a lot different, and it's good that everybody's part of this culture now. Yeah. The culture of winning and the culture of being proud of being a Detroit Lion.
Well, it helps that they're good.
Yeah. And they have a good coach.
They have good talent. They have a good coaching staff. And they have depth. There's a look at big fella, Karan Reed, who's going to get our defensive play of the game. Defensive play of the game is presented by 1-800-LEE-FREE, and he got free that time. Karan Reed with some pressure inside. Comes up with a big sack. Another look, number 97, young man out of Princeton, second-year player. Got it rolling defensively for the Lions, and the offense followed suit, and Ziggy came in together. Couple second-year plays.
And Ziggy's getting jiggy with it. Yeah. Really nice job by Karan Reed, and kind of doing what you've seen in training camp. He has stood out, has he not? Absolutely. He's one of those guys who stood out, and he made a few plays here tonight to stand out.
Coach talked about him quite a bit in our production meeting, saying how they like him, and they really are anxious to see what he could do at speed in a game situation. But getting back to this team, the word we were saying during the course of the game is depth at running back, depth at receiver. When you start using that word referring to an NFL team, that's when you have a good NFL team. Yeah. They start creating depth. Before that, teams are looking just to get 22 decent bodies.
We just need a guy.
Right.
You need a guy to fill in spots, but you're right. Once you start using the words like depth and we have guys backing up guys, you know that you've done a good job of bringing talent in. And this is a desirable place all of a sudden. There's players that want to come and put on this jersey and play for this team, and especially play under Caldwell. I mean, the guy speaks so highly of him, and he's doing such a good job of motivating millionaires is what I like to say, because you got these guys that are making various amounts of dollars, but can a coach come in and motivate you every day, especially on Sundays?
It was lopsided on the scoreboard, 23-3, just as lopsided in the final statistics as well. Not even close.
But let's remember, this is a preseason game. This is a Jets defense that they just carved up. but I don't believe Muhammad Wilkerson played, who was one of the most dominant defensive linemen in the game.
Right.
You did see some of Richardson inside, and this is a team that the defense only played a little bit early on. It's a team right now that I probably came in here a little bit not focused, so to speak, after what happened, all the media coverage. And when you're in the Big Apple, like the Jets are, everything gets just blown up. And not that they needed any help when your quarterback gets punched by a 6th-round draft pick from last year.
Well, a guy who really shined tonight, thrust himself into the wide receiver mix, Jennifer Hammonds with Greg Salas. Jen?
All right, Greg, talk about your evening, and I got to imagine you got a few pats on the back from your former teammates.
Yeah, I saw a lot of familiar faces out there, and but just felt good to get out there and get some playing time.
5 catches for 92 yards, 1 touchdown. What allowed you to do that?
The coaches put us in positions. Quarterbacks have trust in me, and just executing the plays that were supposed to be ran, and just getting the chance to make a play.
What is your objective? Obviously to make the team, but when you come in here and in your first preseason game with the Lions, do you expect to go out and make this kind of impact?
Yeah, I always have high hopes for myself. I'm my 5th year in the league now, and I've had some success whenever I've been on the field, so I know what I'm capable of, and this is something I know I can do, so I'm looking forward to just keep proving myself.
And you've been with several teams. What is it about this team, this Lions offense, that you like the fit so much?
Just the offense that we run. I mean, it's a great offense. It's a receiver's dream. We have a great quarterback, and we have a lot of receivers that are capable. So you just put all that on the field together, and I think you have something special.
Saw you get a little attaboy from number 81. That's got to feel great.
Oh, yeah, that always feels good coming from him. So it's good.
All right, thanks very much, Greg. Congratulations on a great performance and the win, guys. We're going to send it back up to you.
Yeah, he was really good. He's Hawaii's all-time leader in receptions and yards, and he was really good for the Lions here tonight. They looked impressive, 23-3. Golden Tate got them started in the right direction, and they never looked back. More to come from Ford Field after a brief timeout.